we just talk about private school and VAT on private school fees first? There's a kind of triumvirate of stories which are suggesting that this policy might need to be rethought out. First of all, we've got Downham Prep in Norfolk, where a third of the pupils are special needs, saying they have to shut down as a direct result of this policy suggestion by Labour. And the head teacher has said that it will punish, quotes, ordinary parents like plumbers and electricians. We then have the unions, the National Education Union, saying that they will oppose this policy if it means that private school teachers lose their jobs. And then we've got a survey of the National Governance Association, that's 3,000 school boards, saying that they're already seeing a significant rise in private pupils having to go into state schools mid-year, and there's no spaces for them. So this policy is going to be a calamity, isn't it? Not just for the private sector, but for their parents and for the pupils.
Well, we think this is about fairness. Other organisations and institutions have to pay VAT. We do think it's fair for private schools to pay VAT and for that money to be used to recruit 6,500 teachers for our schools, our state schools right across the country, to make sure we can get mental health professionals into our schools, because there is a mental health crisis going on with our children. So I think this is a fair and sensible thing to do. I know that there have been many institutions that have been raising their fees for their own reasons over the last few years. That's for them to decide and to explain. But we think this policy is just about having a fair approach across different organisations and making use of that money to have the best possible chances for children in schools right across the country.
Might it be that private schools have put up their school fees because of the cost of living crisis that the Labour Party keeps on blaming the Conservatives for? I keep on asking shadow ministers this question and nobody so far has been able to answer. So with your wisdom and political experience, I hope you can. When there's a forecast that between 40,000 and 224,000 private students may have to leave their schools, what will Labour do to accommodate them in the state sector? Labour have campaigned saying that schools are overcrowded and oversubscribed. Genuine question, logistically, even if you had an exodus at a Conservative estimate of, say, 5,000 to 10,000 private school pupils, where are you going to educate them come September if you win the election?
Well, the calculations and the work that Bridget Phillipson, our Shadow Education Secretary, and others have done is that in terms of both the funding that's raised and in terms of the processes around this, is that this can all be managed. And I understand, obviously, there is quite a lot of lobbying going on at the moment involving some of the private schools that don't want to have to pay the VAT, and it's for the private schools for them to decide what impact that has in terms of their fees. But we just do think this is about having sensible arrangements in place that are fair across different organisations and making sure that we can fund the big increase in teachers that we need, the mental health professionals in our schools that we need, and make sure that we can get the best possible future for all of our children.
OK, so when you say it can be sensibly managed, are you planning to put up temporary classrooms in September? Are you planning to try and build schools between July and September to accommodate these pupils? How will you physically do it?
Well, Camilla, we do think it can be sensibly managed. We think that this is the right thing to do, and we think that we understand that there are a lot of different lobbying organisations and some quite well-funded lobbying organisations that are trying to kind of set out a whole series of different things which actually are not the way we expect this to be implemented. But I would just simply say I do think this is just a matter of fairness. I understand that there are people who are lobbying within this, but this is just a matter of fairness, and they think this is right to put that investment into our state schools and into the education, the teachers that we need, and really the future that we need for all of our children.
I'm just going to try a final time, and let's try and put it a bit easier. Are we saying that there will be a chance that the next Labour government, if you win the election, is going to have to put up temporary classrooms? Should we agree on that?
I think, look, Camilla, we've set out our policy. It is for private schools themselves to decide. They will need to pay the VAT just like everybody else does. It's for them to decide what then they do about their fees. There's been a lot of, I think, deliberate lobbying going on about what the implications will be for those private school fees. But we do recognise they have already increased. No, they have already increased their fees very substantially over recent years. I think it's for them to decide that. It's really not.
But it's not for them to decide.
As a potential future Labour government to decide, because it's really for us to say, look, we want a fair system in place and we want to make sure that that funding can go into our schools across the country and our kids' future.
But it's going to be for the Labour government to decide how to educate private school pupils whose parents can no longer afford the fees. So how and where are you going to accommodate them? I can't understand why none of you can answer this very simple question.
Well, I think it's for private schools themselves to decide what they do in terms of their fees. We're saying they should pay VAT, but it's for them to decide what they do in terms of their fees, because, as I said, many of them have seen very substantial increases in their fees in recent years. So it's for them to decide what they do around their fees.
OK, well, we're getting nowhere.